Welcome to the Stronger Together podcast, brought to you by Sandpoint Strength and Conditioning. I'm your coach, Kenny Marquardt, and I'm today joined by my lovely wife, Jen. We had a pretty interesting conversation at home about our own nutrition, and we wanted to talk about that today on the podcast because I think it'll be really beneficial. We both have very different approaches, but very similar outlooks and perspectives, and are typically going towards similar goals. But again, very different ways that we get there. So I think you'll enjoy that conversation. But first, some exciting news. This podcast has grown so big that we now have some sponsors. The first is Momentous Supplements. I'm not a big supplement guy, never really have been, but there are a handful from Momentous that I really like, and the quality from Momentous is unmatched. From them, I like their whey protein, their fish oil, their vitamin D, their L-tyrosine, which is for cognitive function, and their alpha GPC, which is also for cognitive function. I think I left out their sleep supplement. They have a sleep stack that I've found a lot of benefits from as well. If you go to livemomentous.com and use the coupon code SandpointStrength, all one word, you'll get 15% off. Our other is Born Primitive Outdoor. Actually, I like the Born Primitive Outdoor. They also make workout gear, but the thing I'm going to advocate for the most strongly is their outdoor stuff. If you know anything about me, you know I spend as much time as I possibly can outdoors, and the Born Primitive stuff that they've been coming out with is phenomenal. I pretty much live in their Quiver half zip hoodie and their Frontier Light 2.0 pants. They're both just super high quality, very comfortable. I've tried so many different things. I've got a closet full of different pants, and I always go to those, the Frontier Light 2.0 pants, and I almost always start my day in that men's Quiver half zip hoodie. If you go to bornprimitive.com and you use the discount code SandPoint15, you'll get 15% off your purchase. All right. I hope you enjoyed this episode. All right. We're live.
Good morning.
Hello. And if you're watching this on video, we got Daphne too.
Got our dog.
Who's going to bring some wisdom to this as well.
She's a wealth of information when it comes to nutrition.
Actually, I'll spin that back around when we start talking about what we want to talk about, which is, well, we are having a interesting, what I think, for two nutrition and fitness coaches conversation the other evening. And we decided we should probably have that conversation on the podcast because I think it was a good insight into how kind of two different approaches to nutrition, but also like along the same lines.
They both work.
Yeah. And let's just start so first of all, I'm notoriously boring with my food, life, etc. by design. Like I have the exact same thing for breakfast every single day. I have the exact same thing for a snack every single day. I have the exact same thing for lunch every single day.
It makes grocery shopping super easy.
Yeah. I have the same exact pre-workout snack every single day. And then dinner is the only thing that's different. But if I didn't have you in my life, it would probably be the exact same thing every single day. That is different than you.
Yeah, that would literally watching you eat makes me bored. But I mean, it works for you. So I'm not judging, but
yeah,
definitely like for me, variety and flavor and creativity are all very, very important to me when I eat, and I get bored eating the same exact thing. Like, yeah, that would just be a recipe for me to go off the rails if I was eating the same thing every day, because I'd just get bored and then be like, F it.
Well, you probably never have to worry about me leaving you because I'm, just designed for marriage.
Vanilla.
Designed for the same thing every day. Yeah, I should be worried about you.
It's actually, yeah.
I should be concerned about you getting bored with me.
No, not when it comes to you, but definitely when it comes to food. Have you always been that way though? Because I don't know if you were that much that way when I first met you, or if you've like settled more into that over the years.
I think I've settled into it, but for a reason. And I think that's what will make this something that somebody should take away from this. It's like taking a couple steps back. I think that both of us would probably not like we're not super heavy into prescribing macros for somebody right off the bat. Like that's something we not something we talk about. Like that's such a big topic that gets written about or talked about or I want blah 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 with macros. And it's not that like macros are legit. Like I'm on board 100% with
It
macros.
works,
Yeah.
right?
And I'll get into why that is, but I think for most people or for the vast majority of readers and listeners and participants like macros are too complicated to how they start, so we typically aren't writing or talking about that because it's just a step or two further down the line than most people need to get to.
There's also a lot of different ways to do macros. I think when people think macros, it's like counting every single thing, but there's intuitive macros. There's so many different ways to get to that same goal, in my opinion.
Yeah. And how that pertains to me and my boring existence is that like I am very dialed in with my macros. Like I did spend a lot of time kind of working into what worked for me for my life and how I feel good and how I'm feel good in workouts, feel good in life, feel good like and then also maintain the body composition or be able to modify the body composition that I want to in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So the point of that is because we had this during our conversation offline, you were encouraging me to make, you know, like, well, why don't you try this? And what if I do that? And what if you, in fact, the other morning you tried to squeeze
I did
like
squeeze.
turkey pepperoni into my eggs.
Just wanted you to have some more flavor. I was like, this tastes so good. Like,
And I, like, that was an enlightening thing to me where I was like, no, this is, and I, like, that would have messed up my day based on how I had to modify something for later because that was going to add something that I'm not used to having. And I had to do the like mental gymnastics
yeah.
of like, how's that going to modify my macros
Mm-hmm.
for the day? So, and again, that's like anytime I change something around, I have to understand how that implicates the rest of my intake.
But ultimately, that is, I mean, we are getting a little bit more into the weeds more quickly here, but like to me, that's actually the point of macronutrients, right? Is that you get that flexibility. You can make those choices. It is like a puzzle that you can put together differently at all times, right? Once
Yes.
you know it.
Yeah, for sure. But I also like, you have not swayed me yet. And I'm good. Like, I've been eating tacos for 12 years or something for lunch. And we're just now talking about like maybe I should like I'm maybe wanting to try something a little bit different. But again, the point of it all for me was like, okay, well then how do I modify everything else to make that work in
Mm-hmm.
a way that doesn't throw it all off and frustrate me?
Yeah.
Because the simplicity of it for me, like I am, and you're very busy too. I'm too busy to like think about stuff and
Mm-hmm.
too busy to take the bandwidth to have to figure something out. And so for me, the serving sizes that I use. In fact, let me just go through my day because it's just again so boring, but also the I think it'll make sense in a building blocks kind of a way. So I have 4 eggs with either cheese or cottage cheese. Then I have rice cakes with some peanut butter. Or I've been actually I did change this up. I started moving to that like
Ooh.
keto granola.
Oh, yes.
Not that I
It's going to bankrupt us.
yeah. Then it's tacos for lunch with elk. And then
And it's
it's
like every day at 11, I like the garage is like off my office. And I like patter in and get it and thaw it. Like it's the same routine every day.
yep. And then it is some sort of pre-workout. Like I usually have a slice of toast with some peanut butter before a workout,
Mm-hmm.
and then I come home from the gym. We have dinner, and then depending on what my goals are at that time, I'll have a protein shake or not. So how that like how that helps me is depending on where I'm sitting and what my goals are at the time, I can easily change things around with like so for my eggs for example, like I can do cottage cheese if I'm trying to like lean out or lose a little bit of weight,
Mm-hmm.
or if I don't care, or if I'm at a maintenance thing, I can do regular cheese. For lunch, if I'm in that like trying to lean out or lose weight, I can do 3 tacos and cottage cheese instead of regular cheese. If I'm maintenance or trying to gain weight, it's 4 tacos and either cottage cheese or cheese. It's all like for those, and then the snacks don't really change that much just because those are more fueling, like intra meal fueling or
Yeah.
pre workout fueling stuff. So those don't typically change. But again, I can, if they are, the one that would change is that midday snack, and that would be uh, one rice cake with peanut butter instead of two.
I think this is actually just a good example of how people think that like weight loss or body composition goals require a ton of like changing everything all at once,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But what you just described, and I can talk about kind of how I do it too, is it's really, I like to like hammer this in for people. It's like it is usually small tweaks.
Yeah.
Like, and the thing that's stopping you from wanting to reach the goal is thinking that it's going to be this really huge deal, right?
And the thing that I think derails most people is trying to make it too complicated and then not having
Yeah.
the thing. Because I like, as you can vouch for, I get frustrated when we don't have, like, if we're out of one of those things, like it throws me off because it's like I
Yes.
don't know what to do beyond that. And I think that again, for I know what I can typically figure it out because I'm aware of what's a protein, what's a carbohydrate, what's a fat, and so I can tweak whatever it is to make it work based on simplicity and macronutrients for me. But what I tend to see for people is they screw it up. They screw up their grocery list or they screw up whatever they have in their pantry, and that blows everything to bits. And they go right back to what's easy and normal for them, which was probably not productive previously. So
Yeah.
they get off track, and then it's like it's all for naught.
And I think actually a little counterintuitive to your point about eating the same thing all the time. Like one of the things that I really try and do to clients that come into my program is teach them how to be food detectives, you know?
Yeah,
So really giving them that baseline education of like, how do you look in your fridge and no matter what's in there, you can make a plate, right?
yeah,
Like you can understand. And this is, I think, where people want to just skip to like, give me a macro plan, I'll just follow it. And I'm really like, I actually don't give clients a plan until week 3 because I want them to learn about the foundation of how to build that plate without that plan. I want them to understand how to be able to put that together themselves. So no matter what situation they're in, they can build a plate and it doesn't become an excuse of like, oh, I just don't have that one thing. So I went and ordered pizza.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Like, um, and so I think, you know, you and I eat similarly in terms of, you know, high protein, moderate carb, moderate fat, depending on our goals, right? Um, but I think the way you and I go about building meals and thinking about food is really, really different, right?
No, well, I think about it the same way. I'm
Yes.
with you in that same exact. Like I understand very completely when I open the fridge what building blocks I can use.
You
It's
just,
just the simple, like because I have calls usually until noon or 1, and then like and sometimes I'm in a rush, and so like my easiest thing that I can possibly do every single day is defrost a pound of elk meat,
yeah,
and that's like so then it goes into whatever else I can do with that, and so that's the most easy ties in with that for me are rice or tortillas. And so that becomes a bowl or tacos. And so again, I think that it's part of it is because most of our diet is built, or mine especially, is built around wild game meat. And so the most easy thing to do with wild game meat is tacos or
yeah.
bowls.
But I think that's, you know, I feel like that's a concept that people need to understand for whatever their goal is eating wise is like you have all these components, right? You need to have a vegetable, you need to have a protein, you need to have a carbohydrate, you need to have some sort of healthy fat. How you put that together, bowl, salad, tacos, like wraps, like you can do it in a myriad of different ways, but those components need to be present in each meal.
Yeah, exactly. And this is interestingly enough, like I'm starting to realize this with fitness stuff too, is that complexity is often confounding towards the actual goal, and just it makes it too hard for someone
Mhm.
to adhere to because they missed the boat because their recipe's messed up.
100%. And a lot of people have lost, you know, let's just talk about a weight loss goal cuz that's what I work with the majority of people on. A lot of people have lost weight before following a plan,
Yep.
right? The issue, and I see this happen all over and over again, is like, okay, somebody gave me a meal plan, somebody gave me a recipe list. Like, I'm just going to follow this to the T. The problem with that is you don't learn anything.
Yeah.
You learn how to like cook from a meal plan,
Totally.
right? And that only goes so far. So the second you go on vacation, the second you don't have time to prep that week, like when you go out to dinner, you don't have any idea of what to do. And that's not actually helping you make something a lifestyle. And that is what I think you and I are both so passionate about. It's like everybody can do something for 4 weeks. Like I want you to be able to do it for 4 years,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And if circumstances change, you can still adhere to the thing based on your inherent knowledge that you've gained through practice. And again, same thing for exercise. I think that that's like something that disappoints me over the year has disappointed me over the years where like the building blocks are honestly the same no matter how you
Mm.
slice it. Every single thing, like call it CrossFit, call it mixed modal, call it whatever the hell you want. I don't really care. I think the people that are so CrossFit dogmatic think that everything has to be this, but when you pull out the pieces
Mm.
because you have a well-rounded education instead of just a CrossFit level 1, like you recognize, okay, well this is actually supposed to be intense conditioning or long conditioning paired in with hypertrophy, which is like trying to make your muscles more a little bit bigger and have more capacity or weight. You know what I mean? Like the point is
Yeah.
like, okay, I can dissect a workout and tell you exactly why that works, not just because somebody smashed this thing up together and said, okay, I'm going to make somebody tired for the next 10 minutes.
Everybody wants to put a label on something, you know, and I'm just like, I think both of us after 12 years of being in this industry or more, it's like for the love,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like the basics work. You like you're trying to sell something, you're trying to package something, you're trying to make it sexier, but at the end of the day, like what has worked always works, you
Yeah.
know? Like
Totally. I want to close the loop on the exercise thing just because I do think it's important. Like in terms of, we were talking about macros and how those are building blocks for
mhm.
nutrition. Like for the getting off of a plan or going on a vacation. So getting off your like normal workout plan if you're at a gym or our gym, getting off of that and going to a hotel and knowing that a workout like your week should consist of movements where you push, you pull, you squat, you bend, you carry, and you can do those vertically or horizontally, whatever. But and you should also have some longer conditioning. You should have some intense conditioning. Like you can easily build workouts around that, knowing that there are certain ingredients that need to be in there for a well-rounded thing. And again, the same thing would pertain to your macros. It's like, okay, well, you should probably have your lean body weight and protein. And then depending on your tolerance for fat or carbohydrates, you balance out your calories with that stuff. But that's like, that's the basics. Like that consists, that's like 80% of the way there from 90% of people.
Most people don't need more complexity to get better results.
Totally. And then on the fitness side of things, you just do a little bit better next week or do a little bit more, add some resistance or repetitions or whatever. It's like programming in a nutshell. But again, if people can understand that better, they give themselves the freedom to do things a little bit differently if they need to,
Yeah.
or if life changes or whatever. You have people in your house for weeks at a time and you can't get to the gym. Like you can just hop in the garage and do push pull and conditioning and you're good to go.
Yeah, I think, I mean, this goes back to, I think, one of the foundational things I see where people just get it so wrong. And it's that like desire for perfection, you know, and that belief that it only counts if you do it perfectly. And I see that with food and I see that with exercise. And it's a super common self sabotaging behavior.
Yep. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I can't tell you how many people have come in and sat across from me, and I'm sure you've had the same experience where they just, it's all, I started and stopped. And I think it's the self sabotage is the perfect way to put it. Like you said, it's like they think that that's the end or whatever, but it's really just a refinement, right?
Oh, 100%. And like I say this at the beginning of my program, it's like the only way you fail is if you stop showing up. Like that's literally the only way you fail. Like if you can keep showing up
Yep.
and learning and that's uncomfortable, right? Like we like to be good at things, especially if you're somebody who's like a gold star person. Like you want to be good at it and it hurts your ego when you're not. And it's easy to then use an excuse to kind of like self soothe and say, like, oh, well, you know, whatever. And then put it on hold again. But
Yeah. I think if you can pull feelings out of it all,
Yes.
like emotions and feelings and identities, like then it's so much easier. I mean, again, for my example for fitness or for weight loss, I guess, or body composition, like I can, like there throughout the year, I will be heavier and carry more body fat, or I'll be leaner and carry less body fat, or I'll have different performance metrics in the gym be a certain way, but both because of my knowledge base and my experience, like I can easily figure. It's not like I'm like, oh man, I've slid down the thing so far. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm fat and lazy. It's just, hey, this is what has happened to get me here. This is how I can change that. And this is what I need to do moving forward. And then I just do it.
Yeah, and it's so much you're right. It is so much easier when you don't get into the poor me, see I did it again, like all that negative self-talk stuff. Like if you can just, and it's hard, it takes practice to,
Yeah.
but to also realize, like I talk with clients about this all the time, is like your body is going to, it's not going to be in the same spot at all times,
Yeah.
right? Like that's just normal.
Yeah.
And for women, that's normal across a month, right? Like your body is different after your cycle compared to right before it. Like it just changes and shifts. And if you are on the emotional roller coaster every single day of, I hate my body, I love my body, like that's miserable.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, well, the thing this I always say is like, what do you have control over right
Yeah.
now? Because I don't have control over like what my body's doing, but I have control over my habits. I have control over how I eat, how I train, how I sleep. Like all those things are actually in my control. So what are you going to do about it?
That's exactly the right question. I think that's where we come in for most people. I think that's where our coaching practices come in
Yeah.
for most people best, is that it can be really overwhelming. And I think that's where people get really frustrated. I
Yeah.
think the overwhelm causes inaction.
Mm-hmm.
And then where we can say, this is the first most logical step to take on. And that's the only thing you need to worry about right this second. So let's put a plan together, which will reduce the overwhelm. And here's the exact first thing that you need to do in order to get started.
Yeah.
Because I think, again, the overwhelm causes that kind of mental spiral of feeling like, oh, it's an identity thing rather than
Mm-hmm.
a plan thing. And so when we can give a plan, then it's okay. No, this is not you. This is what you need to do next.
And a plan should not just be eat this, right? Like if somebody's just saying, here you go,
Yep.
like that actually isn't a plan. That's a tool, but it's not a plan. Like the plan should consist of, in my opinion, the first step is let's get a baseline. Like that's what I have clients do at first. It's like week 1 and 2, I just want you to track what you're eating right now. Like I just want to understand where we're starting from, because I don't want to change things that are working.
Totally.
Right? Like you might have a lot of times I'll look at this and be like, oh, it's actually just this one meal. Like if we make an adjustment to this one meal, the whole day is different, instead of going in blind and saying like, all right, clean out your fridge, clean out your pantry, buy all these, like a lot of times that's not necessary, right? So where are you starting from? What does your daily food intake look like? What is your steps? Like get those baseline measures first, then analyze the one thing that's going to move the needle the most, right? And let's focus there. We don't have to change it all at once.
No. Sometimes I think it's almost underwhelming for people.
100, like so the first week of my like jumpstart program is just tracking and eating every 3 to 4 hours. Like that's it. And every single time someone starts to go, should I be doing more?
Yeah.
I'm like, I promise you, after like so many years of coaching, this is and like 2 weeks later, they're like, I'm so glad you had me start slow, but it's not sexy, right? Like to start slowly. Because if you have momentum, you just want to like go out the gate and like do it as hard as you can at first, but that's why you're quitting 4 weeks later, right? Like that's the very thing that you think is like the motivation is actually the thing that's causing you to stop.
Totally. And I think there's something in our DNA or whatever that wants to embrace that all or nothing perfection. And there's so much, like it feels really momentous to make those big shifts right away. Like, oh, I'm doing the thing. This is I'm going to whatever. And that, again, it feels good for a week or two if you try it the way you're not advocating for, but then inevitably you fall off. And I think we all, I'm so guilty of this so many times where I'm like, I can do this. I'm going to learn Spanish. I'm going to start a new business. I'm going to work out twice a day, and I'm going to be a good dad and father, wife, good, good husband to my wife. And I inevitably blow it all up because it's just, again, I can do it for 2 weeks and it feels awesome. I feel like some productivity master,
Yeah.
but inevitably something gets in the way, life happens, and then it breaks, and then it's all, I think I'm pretty practiced at it, so I recognize when that doesn't work, but it still happens.
And I think what I'm hoping is someone listening to this understands that if that is happening to them, that's actually their normal,
Totally. Yeah.
And that's where I think recognizing, all right, this is actually, it's not you, it's the approach.
Right.
And talk about this a lot with dieting is like, if you have to do something over and over again to like to see results, maybe it's not you, maybe it's the approach you're taking.
Yeah. What do you mean? What's an example?
Well, I wrote a post on this the other day. It's like, I think I'm going to go keto again because it worked last time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, did it work if you're having to do it again? Like, and that it's just so normal that you're either dieting or you're not,
Yeah.
And so I think people don't realize that, wait, like you should be second guessing. Like you shouldn't have to solve this problem every 12 months. Like that's not normal. Right. What you should be trying to do is like, how do I solve this problem in a way that I never have to solve it again? Right. And that's my goal as a coach is like, I don't give a crap how fast you lose weight. Like, yep. But if you're building habits and you're staying consistent and we can tweak over time, and I have the confidence that 4 years from now, you're still going to have these habits. Like that's my goal for you.
Yep.
That's what I want.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. And I think keto's an insidious little bastard because people lose, it's so easy you lose a lot of weight because you're losing the water from carbohydrates. And so you're like, oh my God, it's working so well.
Yeah, you lose 5 pounds in a week because you're not holding onto water from carbohydrates.
Yeah. So people think that it's, this is what works for me. I need this. But it works in parentheses, or not parentheses, in air quotes, works for everybody because of science.
And because most people are ultimately in a caloric deficit. Like that.
Totally. Oh, yeah.
That is like the thing. There's, in this age of every influencer is becoming a health coach. And, I think people, it's like the CrossFit level 1 certification, right? They do one course, they get certified, and they they don't really have the knowledge of what's going on. It's like, and it's really easy to market to people with these like keywords, right? Like cortisol and belly fat and like all the things. But ultimately, if you're not losing weight, you've 2 things, in my opinion. You've been at a lower caloric number for way too long. And what you actually need, if you've been eating 1,500 calories for 2 years and you're not losing weight, well, like I can tell you why that is. It's because your body is regulated to that lower number. Great. You need to reverse up, spend some time at a higher number, and then drop your calories again. That's a very rare circumstance.
Yep.
What is actually most likely happening is you are underestimating the number of calories that you are actually eating, and you're not in a caloric deficit, right? Yep. And that is what is required. It is science. Like that is what is required to lose weight. And you can do that in a number of ways. You can cut carbohydrates, you can cut fat, like there's so many different ways to get there, but ultimately that's what's happening. You don't need a cortisol cocktail. You don't need, any of these things. You need to understand your metabolism and figure out what trigger you need to pull to get yourself in a deficit.
But that's not sexy. What the hell?
I know. Oh my gosh.
Instagram told me this. Yeah, I know.
I know. I mean, I run my business off of Instagram and I get on there every day and I want to just like punch people in the face.
Yeah.
But I can't.
Probably more followers if you did.
It's like you don't understand the science.
Well, it's everything's a hammer. Everything looks like a nail when all you have is a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the most irritating things for me when somebody's a dogmatic, whatever, zealot on whatever it is, fitness or nutrition. It's like, well, you look at their bio and it's like, this is all they've ever done or ever known.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're just trying to sell you something because they know it works and they're
totally
just hawking something out, the next thing.
Well, the overcomplication of it is what just really frustrates me because most people don't have the capacity to maintain those things. And so, are you really caring about the best interest of your clients or people buying from you? Or are you just trying to sell them something and don't care about whether or not they're going to be successful?
Yeah, I think there's more ignorance than what's the word I'm looking for?
I know what you're trying to say, but I can't find it either.
I don't know. Whatever. Negative something. Something negative. It's a good word.
Malintent,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
But
Nefarious.
yes,
That's the word I was looking for.
that's such a you word. I love that word.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's ignorance, and it's hard to be professionals in a space of people who can just have a lot of followers and,
Yeah. It should also be acknowledged, and I wish this was on the front of every gym everywhere. Is like there is no certifying body to qualify someone as a coach. Like you can do whatever the hell you want, call yourself a coach. You have to have zero background. I mean, there's
zero certifications. Yeah.
no other industry in the world like that where you're dealing with people's health and wellness, and you have to do a whatever 1 hour certification and call yourself a coach. And again, I think that leads to a lot of misinformation, broken bodies, uh, and it's really unfortunate. But again, the reason that I bring that up is that if somebody, they 90% of those people who are selling one thing are saying this is the only way, that's all they've ever known. Whereas I think we've really prided ourselves in trying to understand all ways. I'm not saying any of those are necessarily bad tools, but you have to become a craftsman and know what all the tools in your shed are and how they can be best utilized for the project at hand.
Yes, 100%. I mean, and also understanding that scale of like kind of like what we talk about at the gym, like, the level method, right? There's all these different, you start here and then you graduate to this place. It's the same with like basic nutrition skills.
Yep.
Like I have people that come in and they've got like, I love the skiing example, right? Like they're green, they can ski a green circle, right? But barely. And they want to go down the double black.
Yep.
It's like, whoa, you don't need to do that.
Yep.
Because you're going to see a response with much less effort.
Yep.
And also, you don't have the skills built yet. That's okay.
Yeah.
Totally fine. But like, let's get you to a point where you do. And I think that comes back to like, the the aspect of nutrition. Like I actually think starting with what you're talking about of just like kind of finding, a couple of meals that you like, they're easy for you to put together, you understand, the composition of them, doing that for a little bit, get comfortable, then get more creative, as
totally.
you get like the reason I'm able to eat the way I do is because I can do the macros in my head in 2 seconds.
Yep.
Right? That took time to understand and be able to do. I understand like, for the most part, how like exactly like I can do the calories in my head and put them in my fitness pal and they'll be exactly the same, right? But that took time.
Yeah, totally. And the same, I'm actually working on a lot of that in fitness with a lot of my individual clients and people I've been talking to in the gym individually about heart rate zones and conditioning stuff. And I think that I don't think I realized how that was transpiring for people till I started slapping heart rate monitors on people. But recognizing that the complexity of a lot of the things that we do in our conditioning in the gym is confounding their ability to actually get the expected dose of exercise that we're trying to do. And again, the point of it is like I think people expect that they're going to go 3-2-1-0 or 3-2-1 go, hammer down, and that over time their body will adapt to the ability to pace that in a more appropriate. And it's really quite the opposite. And so a lot of the people that I'm working with on this are actually scaling down a lot in weight or complexity of movement to end up in the conditioning zone that I want them in, and then adding complexity once they can understand it. And again, it's something I'm working on or trying to convey verbally to a lot of people, but I'm working more with that. Again, I guess the point I'm trying to get to is the simplicity than complexity until you understand how it affects you and how you can tolerate the changes whether it's exercise or nutrition.
I think that really drives into that, especially working out in a group, but also for my clients who are like doing nutrition in a group, right? Like there's all these other people and you're looking at someone else's results or the way somebody else is doing something and you're thinking, well, I should be able to do that. And that holds more people back than anything else, because stay in your lane.
Yeah.
Like, and to go a little bit deeper into this, it's like, I think people then tell themselves a story. Like if we really look at the nutrition side of this is, you're out to dinner with somebody, right? Who's really fit, right? Somebody goes out to dinner with you, right?
Have tacos.
They see you order hamburger and french fries and a beer. And they're like, see, he can eat whatever he wants.
Right.
Like they see this like small little like 10% of what you're doing and think, well, it's just me. I'm broken. Like I'm never going to be that person. They just like tell themselves that looping story. They don't see 99% of what you're doing. Right. And I used to do that all the time. Like look at somebody that was healthy or lean or whatever and think like, how can they do that?
Yep.
But that's what they're doing 10% of the time. Maybe it's not the 90%.
Totally. Yeah. That's a great point. I think that understanding the organism as a whole and recognizing that there's 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, and that like, an Instagram image of whatever they're doing or seeing a small window into what that is for that day, like assuming, oh, well, they can just eat whatever they want. Not even close.
Not even close. But it's a story I told myself for a really long time.
Yep.
And then as a reason why I was just like not going to care at all. Right.
Sure. Totally. It's a pass. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that like if somebody's, so let's like loop this back a little bit, because one of the reasons why I wanted to do this episode and really chat through nutrition was because this is the time of year, especially where we live, where people are starting to think about wearing shorts and being in a swimsuit and like all of those things. If somebody has that goal, like let's say somebody wants to lean out, maybe lose 10 pounds before they have to get in their swimsuit, like what is your advice to someone in that scenario right now, March, almost beginning of March?
Yeah, well, now is the time to start.
Yeah.
Because then if the number's 10, a pound or two a week is still and has always, I mean, that's
forever
the goal
and ever.
Yeah. So unsexy, but that's
what was that book we were gonna write? Like the most unsexy guide to fitness and nutrition or something like that. Like
one page. But yeah, I mean, your pound or two a week to do it right. And so if that puts you into middle of May, which is about Memorial Day, then
on about 8 to 15 pounds.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Or especially recognizing that there's going to be some peaks and valleys and good weeks and bad weeks. Like you have to start. March 1st is the time to start.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry, go ahead.
No, keep going.
As far as advice, it's just keeping it simple. Start eating tacos every day. Read my new book.
The taco diet.
The taco cleanse.
Or you can make it into a wrap or a bowl.
Yeah, you can do that if you're crazy. But focus on one meal, one thing first.
Yeah.
Like changing one thing with the goal, hit your protein first. Like we've been saying that again, that page 2 of our amazing book is hit your lean body weight in protein. And that's probably a pretty good start from 90% of people.
My biggest advice is start with your breakfast, because like whatever that first meal of the day is for you, I have seen over and over again, generally sets the tone for how the rest of your day goes. So if you can, and breakfast meaning whatever time you want to eat breakfast at. Like
I thought breakfast was bad. I thought I was going to die if I don't intermittent fast every day and my autophagy is going to be through the window. Wrong.
You want to know why fasting works?
Calories. Also, by the way, the autophagy thing only counts if you fast for more than like 3 days, at which point you're going to lose more muscle than it's worth. So knock it off. Like
women, especially fasted workouts, like all that stuff, the research is so clear that that's actually not beneficial in any way, shape, or form. But starting that first meal of the day off strong, So look at that first meal of the day. Are you getting 30 to 50 grams of protein in that first meal of the day? Like if you're not, that's where I would start, because that is going to have such a domino effect on how the rest of your day goes in terms of like sugar craving, satiation, like blood sugar balance, all of those things. That's where I would start.
But that's so much protein. I'll never be
Oh
able to
my
get that.
gosh. Oh my gosh.
I can't understand how you could even get to 100. That's crazy.
But somehow you can get to 250 grams of carbohydrates real easy.
Yep. Easy and
So,
convenient. Yep.
yeah,
Right. I'm
you're
with you.
eating for convenience. Yeah, it's not hard. It's new, right? Like it's just a new way of doing things. I think a great goal is to try and get 100 grams a day first. Like that's a great, if you're at 50, great, try and get to 100, but then it's small changes, right? Eat your protein first. Like then you
Yeah.
won't get so full. Like start with your protein and vegetables, then go on to your carbohydrates and your fats, right? Um, Start like it's small things like adding cottage cheese to your eggs, or having a protein shake instead of that packaged bar that your kids left in the car. Right? It's
Totally.
like it's little changes over time that get you there. There's a reason why that's the recommended amount. Like if you think about what protein does in your body, like the reason why you don't feel good, the reason why you're tired and exhausted, the reason why you're not gaining muscle even if you're working out, is probably because you're not prioritizing protein.
Yep. Totally. I mean, that's like 90% of the battle for most people.
Yeah.
It's just swapping stuff out for more protein.
Stop telling yourself it's so hard and start telling yourself, how can I? Ask, how can I?
It is hard. I mean, I think it is hard. It's hard to eat that much protein, but that's the point. Like, because then you don't eat other crap, and then you're full, and your jaws are tired from chewing
Yeah.
meat.
And when you start doing that, you just start to realize like my sugar craving has nothing to do with my willpower.
Yep.
It has everything to do with the fact that I'm not fueling my body properly.
Totally.
And
All
then
right.
you're in control.
I think we got to wrap it up because.
Oh, do we have guests? Okay.
Yeah.
So if someone's ready to get started, if you need some support and accountability, if you're ready to have a little bit more of a roadmap and somebody to kind of guide you along the way, how can they do that?
Sandpointstrength.com for us, or just Coach Kenny Marquardt on Instagram. I'm happy to help, whether it's with me or at the gym, or for you.
You can find me at Jenn Marquardt on Instagram, and we've got a couple different programs. If you are a woman over 35 and looking for some more support and accountability and a long-term plan, I'd love to work with you.
Sweet. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that window into our lives and my incessant boringness and Jen's wild life of crazy
flavor
foods.
and excitement.
All right.
Both work.
Enjoy your day. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Toodles.
Oh.
All right. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget, you can go to some of our sponsors at bornprimitive.com and use Sandpoint15 for 15% off your purchase, or you can go to livemomentous.com and use Sandpoint Strength, all one word, for 15% off your supplements there.